I'm joined here by dooi ahead of today's matchup. Thank you so much for taking the time to join me. Now, I want to start off by talking about Stage 4 of the QPL. It seems to be a little bit more of a challenge for you compared to some of the other seasons. Can you kind of provide me some insight on your current form and your current mindset?
I actually don't feel like it's been that bad. I have the tendency to have all of the tougher matches right at the beginning of the stage. So in stage 3, it was very similar. And this stage, I think I kicked off with Chain, and I lost a couple of the maps by 1 frag and the other map by 2 frags, I think. And he just played really well that day. And then I played Rafa and Saigib. Saigib again was really close. Rafa wasn't really close. And then I beat Dehang. So I mean, the top 4 players in North America were my first 4 matches, and then kind of moving into played Nosfa, where I still got to make up my match with Effortless and GNIC, so kind of moving into the more evenly matched part of my schedule. So and this is how it usually works out for me. So I don't feel like I've played too horribly. I actually generally play a really consistent game. I don't really rely on anything that should lead to toonie ups and downs. So I'm not really concerned. And, that's kind of the good part about, just focusing on playing like good odds is, my match record, my map record usually winds up, slightly better than 500. So I'm pretty confident going into the second half that things will smooth out and averages will play out in my favor.
I'd like to talk about that as well. Obviously, you've got 2 games left of the season. You'll be facing players that, as you said, are below you in the rankings. We've also got GNIC and Zanaku as well. Can you kind of talk us through your preparations for these kind of games? As you were saying, of sort of some slightly lower level players, do you prepare any differently for these matches?
No, right now I practice very minimally, and I find I'm playing pretty well doing that. But generally speaking, I just try and really win the pick bans and focus on high percentage scenarios that I know I can perform well in. I don't have a lot of time to practice anymore, so I just try and play things that I know I can win with and I know that work. And occasionally I'll step out of my box, but against lower level players, I actually think focus is more important because they have something to prove and they want to beat you. Like when you're ranked above somebody, there's a target on your back, and it means more to them than to win against you than it means for you to win against them. So I would say that for most players, they'd probably say this is true. The games that should be easy wins are usually the hardest wins. And sometimes the most difficult and challenging games that they think should be, nearly impossible are some of the wins that come slightly easier just because the other player's not expecting them to perform as well. So, I'd actually say against these players, it's really important to just focus on what you're good at and understand what they're trying to do and really execute a good game plan. And don't get ahead of yourself. I see a lot of players they play someone who's lower ranked than them and they try and win right away. They're just not comfortable at all with playing with uncertainty and dealing with uncertainty. They're totally uncomfortable being uncomfortable. I really try to focus on is, winning games that you should win by doing exactly what you're supposed to do and not trying to take any shortcuts, not trying to do anything too crazy. That's something Rafa's really good at. You'll almost never see him win against players that are lower levels than him by just a small margin, because he doesn't let off the gas. He doesn't try and make it any do anything cute or special or anything. He's just playing his game and he knows it's going to work, and he stays disciplined. So that's what I'm going to try and do.
Yeah, and I think that's definitely something that fans have been seeing from you, because I think you're kind of known for this unique defensive kind of playstyle. Can you kind of talk to me about how that playstyle came about into being, and have you been adapting it at all in recent times?
I try not to be too defensive, but what happens, I think, particularly in the modern, scene, is everybody has really strong mechanics and really strong aim, and a lot of players that rise to the top in Quake, particularly in America, get there because of their aim, and they get there because of their mechanics. So they're able to bully players as they're coming up. So they come up with these play styles that are very, bullyish. They're pushing situations because they know they're going to win mechanically. And that's something you see with a lot of players like Nosfa and Genic and Dramas. And so against those playstyles in particular, yeah, you will see me play slightly more defensive. And against some of the European players as well, you'll see me play slightly more defensive. And that's simply because those playstyles yield a lot of good opportunities to win games when you play defensive against them. And so I think that's why you see the defensive playstyle. But I mean, I think there's other times where, I've showed up and been more aggressive, particularly in the last couple of seasons. And I think it's actually very effective for me when I do that, because people train all week or mentally prepare for the match expecting this snooze fest. And when they get popped in the mouth, at the beginning of a map, they're kind of taken by surprise, and they don't necessarily know how to adapt to that. Or better yet, if they get popped in the mouth at minute 6 after they've been getting exactly what they've expected for 5 minutes, it makes it even more difficult for them. So that's something that I've really been trying to use to my advantage recently.
Yeah, I think that adaptability is something that is obviously very, very important, especially when you're saying from a teammate's perspective. And it's interesting to hear that you feel like you can sort of read those situations as well. And with the finals kind of approaching, how do you feel your chances are, and what do you think you need to do to try and secure your name on the belt?
At this point, I don't know what my chances are, but I think what I'm going to try and do is just continue to play this high percentage game, as best as I can, and try and shoot for a 60% win rate or 70% win rate, which is usually worked out pretty well for me, particularly in the pick ban phase. So, I really focus on just trying to give myself a really good chance to win 2 maps and a decent enough chance to not get blown out on the 3rd map. And that's a winning scenario. So, just trying to give myself the best probability to win before the match even starts, and being mentally prepared, because I recognize my strengths versus these other players, and they're not as tangible as other players, who hit everything, or, actually I think my movement's improved, but my aim's, not legendary for, by any means. So generally speaking, I'm just relying on being creative. And so I find by practicing a little less, not burning myself out, that I always feel very creative when I play. And so it comes out in awesome wins against good players. And so that's what I'm going to focus on, is just, preparing, trying to keep my mechanics as in good a shape as possible, but also remembering that come the finals, I want to be, sharp and ready to be creative and ready to solve some problems. And I think I'll do all right.
Well, I'm thoroughly looking forward to seeing that. Thank you so much for taking the time again to chat with me today, and best of luck in your remaining games.
Thank you. Have a good one.